The morning rain tapped steadily against the windows of Sweet Dreams Bakery, as Caris Monroe arranged freshly baked cupcakes inside the display case. Each one carried a tiny sugar violet, her signature touch. She loved these quiet early hours, before any customer stepped in, when she could breathe, think, and enjoy the warm scent of vanilla and cinnamon. Welcome to Voices of Auntie May. I share new life stories every day, so please hit subscribe and like this video. Now, let's get back to the story. Trust Mule, want to hear it to the end. At exactly 7:30, the phone rang. No one ever called this early. Hello, this is Caris. She held the phone against her shoulder, still arranging the cupcakes. Good morning, Ms. Monroe. This is Barclay Quinn from Quinn Owen and Associates. I'm calling regarding the estate of your godmother, Ms. Aerys Holloway. Caris froze. Aerys had passed away 3 weeks earlier after battling cancer. Caris had gone to the funeral, then buried herself in work, trying not to think about losing the woman who had been more of a mother than anyone else. Oh, yes. What can I do for you? Ms. Holloway left you an inheritance. We need to meet as soon as possible due to the nature of the assets. Assets? Caris repeated. Aerys never mentioned anything. Your godmother left you her restaurant, the Legacy Crown. Her hand trembled. A cupcake slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. The Legacy Crown wasn't just a restaurant. It was the most prestigious dining spot in Atlanta. Politicians, celebrities, business icons, everyone wanted a reservation. Aerys had built it over 3 decades from a tiny cafe into a legend. There must be some mistake, Caris whispered. No mistake, the lawyer replied. Ms. Holloway said you were like a daughter. She trusted only you to preserve the restaurant's legacy. An hour later, Caris sat in Quinn's office staring at documents confirming she now owned a multi-million-dollar restaurant. Aerys knew her condition for over a year, the lawyer explained. She prepared everything: the restaurant, the wine cellar, vendor contracts, and a personal letter with instructions. Caris accepted the envelope, her hands shaking. The words "to my dearest Caris" were written in Aerys's familiar slanted handwriting. Can I take this home? Certainly, but we must finalize the transfer within days. The restaurant can't be without leadership. Caris nodded, still stunned. She remembered stepping into the Legacy Crown's kitchen at 9 years old. Her mother had worked there as a pastry chef until pneumonia took her when Caris was 14. After that, Aerys had raised her, paid for school, and taught her to bake with heart. You're special, Caris, Aerys always said. Your hands understand dough, and your heart brings it to life. Lost in memories, Caris signed all the papers. She knew restaurants because Aerys had taught Erbit. Running the Legacy Crown felt enormous. By the time she reached home, it was noon. She hoped to read Aerys's letter before Jarvis returned, but his car was already in the driveway. They had met 6 years earlier at a charity dinner where Caris handled desserts. Jarvis tasted her lavender honey cake and told her it was unforgettable. A year later, they married. You home? Jarvis sounded tense. She walked into the living room and found him on the sofa with a glass of whiskey. Highly unusual at 2 p.m. What's wrong? Why aren't you at work? My mother called, he said tightly. She heard you inherited the Legacy Crown. Is it true? Caris stiffened. No one knew yet. How did he? So it is true, Jarvis muttered, taking a long drink. Why didn't you tell me? I just came from the lawyer. I planned to tell you tonight. Mom heard it from the wife of a waiter at the Crown. Everyone's stunned. Aerys left the whole restaurant to you. Caris flushed. Of course, people would talk. A bakery owner suddenly receiving one of the city's top restaurants. She was my godmother. We were very close. But this is a real restaurant, Jarvis insisted. Not a small bakery with 3 tables. This is a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Caris held the envelope to her chest. Jarvis wasn't wrong. This was huge. But Aerys believed in her. I can do it. She taught me everything. Caris, be reasonable. He faced her. You make beautiful cakes, but what do you know about wine lists? Staffing? Accounting? I can learn, she said softly. Jarvis ran his hand through his hair, his sign of irritation. Mom says it's reckless. And I agree. At the mention of Tamsin Niles, Caris's stomach tightened. Her mother-in-law had always disapproved of her, calling her a baker as if it were an insult. What does your mother have to do with this? She's coming over for dinner. She wants to discuss things. Discuss my inheritance. Our inheritance, Jarvis corrected. We're married. The word stung. Jarvis had never cared about her bakery yet now that something valuable appeared. Suddenly, it was ours. That evening, the house filled with Tamsin's expensive perfume. She entered, as always, without knocking. I'm here, darlings. Tall, perfectly styled, and eager to be part of Atlanta's elite. Tamsin kissed Caris's cheek lightly. What shocking news. You must be overwhelmed. Yes, it was unexpected. I'm sure. Aerys was always strange. During dinner prepared entirely by Caris, Tamsin launched into her takeover plan. I spoke with Fielding, she told Jarvis, dismissing Caris entirely. With the market booming, we have two options. Sell the restaurant immediately, or, she paused dramatically, I could run it. Caris stared at her. Excuse me? Don't look at me like that, Tamsin laughed. I worked as an accountant before marriage. I've always dreamed of owning a restaurant. You never mentioned it, Caris said. No reason to, Tamsin replied smugly. But now that the opportunity is here, Jarvis, agree with me. Jarvis hesitated, then said, Mom has experience. I could help with tech website, reservations, and me. Caris asked quietly. Aerys left it to me. Tamsin patted her hand. Of course, dear, you can handle desserts. They're lovely. But running the place, that's different. Caris remembered the letter in her purse, the one she still hadn't opened. She should have read it the moment she got home. I just need time, she finally said. This is a huge decision. Of course, sweetheart, Tamsin replied with a sugary smile that didn't reach her eyes. Just don't wait too long. Business moves fast. After dinner, once Tamsin left, Caris slipped into the bathroom, the only place she could be alone, and opened Aerys's letter at last. My dearest Caris, if you're reading this, then my journey has ended. Don't mourn too deeply. I lived a full life, and nothing made me prouder than watching you grow. I am giving you the legacy crown. Not because there were no other options, but because you are the only one I trust with my life's work. You have the instinct, the discipline, the heart. You don't just serve food. You give people happiness. That is rare. I know you doubt yourself. I doubted myself too when I started with nothing but a tiny cafe. Passion and the willingness to learn were all I had. You have far more. The staff will help you. Chef Bram has been by my side for 15 years. Manager Nita knows every corner of that place. They're waiting for you, and they'll stand with you. One last thing, Barkley didn't give you everything today. Some documents and assets were left separate for your protection. If anything goes wrong, contact him immediately. Believe in yourself the way I have always believed in you. With love, Aerys. Tears blurred Caris's vision as she pressed the letter to her chest. Aerys hadn't just trusted her, she had prepared her. When Caris walked back into the bedroom, Jarvis was waiting with a stack of papers. Here, he said, pushing them toward her. A power of attorney. Mom thinks it will be easier if you let her manage the restaurant for now. Just temporarily. Caris looked from the papers to her husband. She remembered the man who once praised her lavender honey cake like it was magic. When had the admiration disappeared? Or had she simply refused to see who he really was? No, she said quietly. I'm not signing. Jarvis's expression twisted. Caris, don't be childish. Mom is trying to help you. You know you can't handle something this big. No, Jarvis, she said, her voice firming. Your mother wants control. There's a difference. He slammed the papers onto the bed. Aerys used you, first as free labor, then as emotional support. And now she's dumped a monster of a business on you. And you're just going to walk into a disaster? Don't talk about her like that. Caris snapped the first time she'd ever raised her voice at him. You don't know anything about what she did for me. I know my wife has been decorating cupcakes in a 3-table bakery for 6 years. Jarvis shot back. Now suddenly you own a multi-million-dollar restaurant. Do you know what people will think? What the customers will think when they realize the crown was handed to someone who's never run anything bigger than a bake sale? Each word struck like a slap, but Caris held her ground. I need time, she whispered. There is no time. Jarvis snatched up the documents again. Mom already talked to the vendors. They need a decision. Either you let us help, or he didn't finish, but the threat hung thick in the air. Caris suddenly felt boxed in. She had spent her life accommodating others, softening her voice, shrinking her dreams, making everyone else comfortable. Fine, she finally said. I'll sign, but only temporarily 1 month, and I want to be told about every single decision. Relief washed over Jarvis's face. Of course. That's completely reasonable. He placed the papers in front of her and handed her a pen. Caris reached for it slowly. Aerys's voice echoed in her mind. Believe in yourself the way I believe in you. Just then, the phone rang. Caris, and the pen slipped from her fingers. I'll answer it, Jarvis muttered. While he stepped away, she glanced down at the documents again. Her heart froze. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't limited. This wasn't protection. It was full, unrestricted control, handed to Tamsin, permanent. Jarvis returned, fury in his eyes. Mom talked to the chef. He's threatening to quit if management doesn't make a decision by tomorrow. We need to sign now. Caris blinked. That was a lie. Bram would never betray Aerys and certainly not side with Tamsin. Something inside her snapped cleanly into place. No. Jarvis stared at her. What? I'm not signing, she said. Calm/steady. Unbreakable. The legacy crown belongs to me. Aerys chose me, and I'm going to run it. Jarvis's face purpled as he slammed his fist onto the table. You're going to destroy everything? Maybe, Caris said softly, but if I do, it will be my mistake, not yours, and not your mother's. At that moment, the front door flung open. Tamsin marched in as though she owned the house. Caris, she barked. Jarvis told me everything. You're being emotional and irrational. This restaurant needs real leadership, not sentimentality. Caris stood tall and looked her directly in the eye. I've made my decision. I'm taking over the restaurant myself. Tamsin laughed sharply. You darling. You can't manage a luxury restaurant. You'll have a staff revolt within a week. I'll take that risk. She turned to leave. Stop. Jarvis caught her arm. You can't walk out. Not now. Caris pulled her arm away. Yes, I can. And I will. Jarvis's temper exploded. He lunged toward the table, grabbed the restaurant documents, and lifted them as if claiming a trophy. Enough. He shouted. If you won't choose wisely, then I'll make the choice for you. He shoved the papers toward his mother. Here, Mom. Caris felt her breath catch as Bram continued. Technically, she offered Liam severance, he said, but the way she spoke to him, everyone knew she wanted him gone. 10 years of loyalty, dismissed like nothing. Caris clenched her fists. She has no authority to fire anyone. Exactly why I asked to meet you, Bram replied. Most of the staff are uneasy. They don't know who to trust. Nita is barely holding things together in the front. Your mother-in-law came in acting like she owned the place, issuing orders, criticizing everything, making changes without understanding how this restaurant even works. Aerys would have thrown her out in 5 minutes. They walked in silence for a moment, listening to the river below the bridge. Caris, Bram said finally, stopping to look at her directly. I need to know one thing. Are you planning to take control? Because if you are, the staff will stand with you. We just need your word. Caris swallowed. She felt the weight of the moment settle onto her shoulders. I am, she said softly. The legacy crown is mine. Aerys trusted me to protect it. I won't let anyone, especially Tamsin, tear apart what she built. A slow, relieved smile spread across Bram's face. Then you're not alone. When you're ready to step in, Nita and I will be there. Caris nodded, feeling strength return to her chest, strength she thought she had lost forever. Then Tamsin announced more cuts. She slashed the wine list, removed signature dishes she called too expensive and pretentious, and even tried to change the reservation system. Caris felt a tight knot growing in her chest. When she mentioned reservations, Nita grew visibly anxious. Nita tried her best to explain. We have guests who book months in advance. Our reputation is built on consistency. But Ms. Niles only smiled coldly. A new business direction matters more than old habits. They stopped near the parapet overlooking the water. Bram turned to Caris. Aerys trusted you, Ms. Monroe, he said. She believed you had a rare gift, sensing not just what people want to eat, but what they need. Most chefs feed people. You give them memories. That skill can't be taught. Caris felt her cheeks warm. I don't know if I deserve that. Aerys didn't give praise lightly, Bram said firmly. If she chose you, there's a reason. So what now? Caris asked quietly. Tamsin will keep changing the crown, Bram said. I don't know how long the staff can endure. Liam already left. Some are waiting, watching. Nita is standing her ground, though it's taking a toll. I'm old and stubborn. I'm not leaving unless I'm forced. For many of us, the crown is family. Aerys built that family. They exchanged numbers. Bram promised updates. The next day, Caris met Nita Price, elegant, composed, but tired. They met away from the city center. Nita explained everything in detail. She fires anyone who disagrees with her. She gutted the wine list. She even switched our seafood supplier to some shady company a friend of hers owns. Bram is furious. The food quality is dropping, but prices remain the same. And the customers? Caris asked. They're noticing. Some regulars already canceled. Yesterday, Judge Fitzgerald, who's eaten with us every Friday for 15 years, left without finishing his entree. He said, "This isn't the crown I know." Caris's stomach tightened. And the vendor contracts Barkley mentioned. Nita finally smiled. This is the interesting part. Ms. Niles ordered half the wine collection sold to optimize assets. But when Edward the sommelier tried to access the cellar, he didn't have the right key. The wine cellar isn't registered as part of the restaurant. It's registered to you. And so are most of the vendor contracts. Caris's heart raced. Aerys planned all of this. Oh yes, Nita said softly. She knew exactly what she was doing. 6 days later, Caris was closing the bakery when the bell rang. Jarvis walked in, looking exhausted. I finally found you, he said. I wasn't hiding, Caris replied calmly, wiping down tables. You knew where I was. You didn't come home. You didn't answer my calls. I'm sleeping in the back room. It's comfortable enough. Jarvis blinked, thrown off by her composure. Caris, things are complicated. We need to talk. Complicated how? The restaurant? She asked. He hesitated. Yes, Mom made some changes. Not everyone is happy. Bram is causing trouble. And Nita keeps insisting that certain contracts require your signature. They do require my signature. Jarvis ran a frustrated hand through his hair. Look, I know what we did wasn't right, but we were trying to help. Now we need your support. Talk to the staff. Tell them Mom is acting for you. But she isn't. Caris met his eyes steadily. She took the documents by force. That gives her no legal authority. Days passed, and things worsened. Tamsin destroyed the menu, fired employees who disagreed, and tried to sell part of the wine collection. Customers left. The press began asking what had happened to the legendary legacy crown. Caris stayed calm. She kept running her bakery, meeting former staff, consulting her lawyer, but she didn't intervene. Why aren't you stopping her? Bram asked. Caris answered quietly. Sometimes, you must give someone enough rope to hang themselves. On the 10th day, Tamsin made her biggest mistake. She refused service to a state representative who had been a loyal customer for over 20 years just to give the table to her questionable businessman friend. The scandal exploded instantly. By night, the legacy crown was the center of a media firestorm. And that same night, Bram resigned. For cooks followed. Now the restaurant was bleeding staff, customers, reputation and hope. Even Jarvis finally realized the truth. His mother wasn't saving the restaurant. She was destroying it. The next morning, the crown opened late. Tamsin stormed around, frantic and clueless. Her bright pink suit clashed painfully with the crown's elegant, understated decor. I don't see the issue, she declared to the staff. If one cook quits, we'll find another. Atlanta is full of people who can cook. Nita coughed gently. Ms. Niles. Bram wasn't just a cook, he was a Michelin-starred chef. Many customers came only for his dishes. Tamsin waved a dismissive hand. Stars don't matter. People come for ambience. As long as the food is presentable, we're fine. The staff exchanged terrified looks. She truly understood nothing. Robert will act as head chef today, Tamsin announced. Robert went pale. Ms. Niles, I'm not ready. We should close temporarily and hire a proper replacement. Close, Tamsin barked. Absolutely not. She turned to Nita. Reservations. 18 tables, including Senator Harrison. Excellent. But that evening marked, please give the chef my condolences on my check. Senator Harrison said softly. I'm afraid I won't be finishing dinner tonight. His departure triggered a chain reaction. Within the hour, half the reserved tables were empty. Some guests left mid, others canceled before they even arrived. By closing time, the once busy dining room looked like a ghost of the crown's former glory. Tamsin was livid. What is happening? She snapped at Nita as she stormed through the restaurant. Why so many cancellations? And what is all this nonsense about people nitpicking the food? Nita rubbed her temples, exhausted. Ms. Niles, the Legacy Crown is a fine dining establishment. Our regulars expect consistency, quality, and refinement. They're noticing the changes. Then we need new customers, Tamsin declared. People who aren't so snobby, normal people who just want good food without all that pretentiousness. But the restaurant's reputation can be changed, Tamsin interrupted sharply. Starting tomorrow, we'll lower prices by 20% and advertise. I've already contacted the local paper. Nita knew arguing was pointless. Tamsin heard only what she wanted to hear. That same night, above Sweet Dreams Bakery, Caris received an unexpected knock. It was Jarvis Bale, exhausted, and clearly unraveling. I didn't know you were living here, he muttered, glancing around the small apartment. It's temporary. Caris replied, setting a cup of tea in front of him. Why are you here so late? Jarvis wrapped his hands around the mug, seeking comfort. The restaurant isn't going how we expected. No, Caris asked lightly, with a hint of irony. It's gotten complicated. He sighed deeply. Bram left. Several cooks followed. Customers are upset. Mom keeps insisting everything's fine. But it's not. What did you think would happen, Jarvis? Caris asked gently. The legacy crown isn't just a building. It's people, tradition, decades of earned respect. Jarvis ran a trembling hand through his hair. I know, it's just Mom truly believed she could make it better. She always dreamed of owning a restaurant. By taking someone else's inheritance, Caris finished quietly. Jarvis winced. I'm sorry, he whispered. I shouldn't have taken those papers. I know it was wrong. Caris studied him carefully, trying to see if he meant it or if he simply feared losing control. What do you want from me, Jarvis? Help us, he pleaded. Talk to Bram. Convince him to return. Or help us find a new chef. You have connections. Bram will never return under your mother's command, Caris said firmly. He loved Aerys's vision. Tamsin is destroying everything she built. She's just trying to make it more affordable, more profitable. At the expense of quality, Caris cut in. It won't work. The Crown is not a casual diner. It's a destination. People go there for an experience. Jarvis's shoulders slumped. I tried telling her, but I can't stand up to her. I know, Caris said softly. And that's exactly why nothing will ever go back to how it was. The next day, Caris met Barclay Quinn at his office. The lawyer greeted her with a knowing smile. I hear things are spiraling at the Crown, he said. Caris nodded. Yes, and I need your advice. It's time to decide the next step. Barclay folded his hands. You want to regain control. I want to honor Aerys, Caris said, and build something new. She opened her notebook. I met with Bram and Nita. They're willing to work with me. I found a promising location, a beautiful old stone building in Old Fourth Ward. I want to open Aerys's legacy. Bram will be the chef, Nita the manager. But I need to know what resources Aerys left me. Barclay opened a file with slow deliberation. Aerys prepared for every scenario. The wine cellar worth over $200,000 is legally yours. The professional equipment is yours through a separate lease. And this, you didn't know she left a $300,000 investment account for future expansion. Caris stared at him, stunned. Aerys wanted you to grow, Barclay said gently, no matter what happened. And the brand? Caris asked. The legacy crown. That, too, belongs to you. A plan formed in Caris's mind, sharp, clean, unstoppable. She could take everything that made the legacy crown, the people, the equipment, the wine, the brand, and move it to her new location. Tamsin would be left with nothing but an empty shell. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, things deteriorated rapidly. The price cut campaign attracted the wrong crowd, people who expected cheap food and complained when the bill was still higher than a typical diner. The regular clientele avoided the Crown entirely, and when journalists arrived for a feature, Tamsin clueless welcomed them with open arms. We're making the Crown more modern, more democratic, she declared proudly. The critic blinked. And Bram Cassidy's departure. His vision no longer aligned with ours, Tamsin said smugly. The journalist ordered one of the Crown's signature dishes, now butchered beyond recognition, and left without a word. 2 days later, the article dropped like a bomb. Crown in freefall. How a legendary restaurant is losing its soul. The article spread like wildfire. Food bloggers chimed in. Critics wrote furious posts. The hashtag #SaveTheCrown the Crown, YALL went viral. When Jarvis showed the article to his mother, Tamsin erupted. They're all snobs. Who are they to tell me how to run a restaurant? Mom, Jarvis said quietly. Maybe we should rethink our strategy. Maybe return to the old concept. You're against me too, she snapped, eyes blazing. I thought you were with me in this, Jarvis said wearily. I just want the restaurant to survive. Now we're losing customers, money, and our name. I don't need those pretentious customers, Tamsin snapped. New ones will come, people who understand my vision. But no one came. After the brutal newspaper article, reservations dropped even further. On a Friday night, the night that used to be packed only, 3 couples sat scattered across the legacy Crown. On the 9th day after Bram's departure, the final blow arrived. Early in the morning, men in suits walked into the restaurant with folders in hand. We represent the owners of the wine collection and the kitchen equipment, one of them announced calmly. According to the contracts, these assets can be reclaimed at any time. What owner? Tamsin burst out. This restaurant is mine. The building is yours, Ms. Niles, the man corrected. But the equipment and wine collection belong to Ms. Caris Monroe. By evening, the professional ovens, refrigerators, wine cellar, and even the individually leased furniture were taken away. The restaurant was stripped down to bare walls. Jarvis found his mother sitting alone in the empty dining hall. a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table. It's over, she whispered, hollow. Without the equipment, we can't function. Without the wine, half our revenue is gone. And the staff. They're leaving. Jarvis sat beside her, unable to find words. For the first time in his life, he saw his mother always fierce, always commanding, utterly broken. We could buy new equipment, he said weakly. Tamsin laughed bitterly. With what? Do you know what a professional kitchen costs? Or what that wine collection was worth? Caris played us, Jarvis. She was smarter than I thought. On the 10th day of Tamsin's takeover, a sign appeared on the door. Closed for renovations, but those who knew, understood. There would be no renovation. The legacy crown Aerys Holloway's life's work was gone. Meanwhile, across the city, inside a charming historic building with stone walls and arched windows, work was moving quickly. A new restaurant was rising, Aerys's legacy built on everything Aerys had created and everything Caris now dared to dream. That night, as the legacy crown went dark forever, Caris's phone rang. Jarvis. She stared at the screen. Part of her wanted to ignore it, part of her wanted to hear what he would say now, when everything had collapsed. She answered on the 5th ring. Hello, caressed. Thank God. We need to talk. It's urgent. What is it? She asked calmly. The crown. Everything's falling apart, he said shakily. Mom is losing her mind. Lawyers are warning about bankruptcy. Rent suppliers, everything. Please help us. Caris said nothing. She let him speak. She sat in a small office at the back of her new restaurant, surrounded by sample menus Bram had helped her design. Caris, can you hear me? Jarvis's voice cracked. This is a disaster. Mom mortgaged her house. If the restaurant doesn't reopen, she'll lose everything. What do you want from me? Caris asked evenly. Jarvis hesitated. Could you talk to Bram, convince him to return, or help us hire a new chef, or maybe return the equipment and the wine collection? Caris finished his sentence for him. You want everything back? Yes, he whispered. Mom admits she was wrong. She do anything? I can't give it back, Caris replied. Everything is already installed in the new location. What new location? Jarvis's voice sharpened. Caris took a breath. I'm opening a new restaurant, Jarvis. Aerys's legacy. Bram, Nadita, and most of the staff are with me. There was silence. Then a broken, breathless laugh. So while Mom and I were trying to save the crown, you were building your own place. You stole our staff, our equipment. I stole nothing, Caris interrupted softly but firmly. Everything I took was legally mine. The staff left because they refused to work under your mother. You planned this, Jarvis said bitterly. From the start. No, Caris said quietly. But after what you did, after you handed over my documents to your mother, I realized something. Aerys's legacy wasn't the building. It was the people, the traditions, the recipes, everything your mother destroyed in 10 days. Jarvis exhaled shakily. I need to see you, he said at last. Please, where are you? Caris considered. Should she tell him the address? What if he brought Tamsin? Lawyers. Chaos. Finally, she said, Old 4th Ward Alley. Number 19. And Jarvis, if you bring your mother or anyone else, I won't speak to you. I'll come alone. 20 minutes later, Caris heard the bell. Jarvis walked in. He looked nothing like the immaculate man she once married. Rumpled shirt, messy hair, dark circles, defeated eyes. Caris stood in the middle of the large, beautiful space that was almost ready to open. Stone walls, wooden beams, soft lighting, white tablecloths, a glass wine cellar filled with Aerys's bottles. Jarvis took it all in. So this is it, he said quietly. This is what you were building. Yes, Caris said simply. They sat in a small office, cups of coffee between them. Why didn't you tell me? Jarvis whispered. That you were planning your own restaurant? Caris raised her brows. Would you have listened? Before or after you betrayed me? Jarvis lowered his gaze. I know I did something horrible, but Mom, she convinced me you couldn't handle the crown. And you believed her more than your wife. It wasn't easy, he whispered. I was torn apart. I couldn't sleep, especially when you left home. But you did nothing, Caris said, her voice soft but steady. Nothing to stop your mother. Nothing to stand up for me. Nothing to save what Aerys built. Jarvis pressed his hands to his face. I tried talking to her, but she never listens. She's impossible. And you've obeyed her your entire life, Caris. And you've obeyed her your entire life, Caris said sadly. This crisis only revealed what was already true in our marriage. You could never stand up for me. Jarvis's voice broke. I love you, Caris. I've always loved you. I know, she replied gently. But love isn't enough. Not when you don't have the courage to choose the person you love, even when it's hard. Caris hesitated for a moment, carefully choosing her words. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the arched windows, casting long shadows across the polished stone walls and illuminating the white tablecloths she had arranged with such meticulous care. She held the bouquet of white roses Jarvis had brought, their delicate petals almost glowing in the warm light. "She's facing the consequences of her choices," Caris said finally, her voice steady but measured. "Your mother is learning things the hard way. I haven't decided how much I'll help her, but I want her to understand without letting her interfere in what I've built here." Jarvis's shoulders slumped slightly, and he ran a hand through his messy hair. His usual calm and precise demeanor had dissolved into something more raw, vulnerable. "I understand," he said softly, "and I won't try to interfere. I wanted to be here, to see you take this step, to witness what you've accomplished with your own hands, your own vision." Caris looked at him for a long moment, weighing his sincerity. She could see the mixture of guilt, admiration, and uncertainty in his eyes. Part of her still ached at the memory of his betrayal, the nights of worry when he had sided with his mother, allowing the legacy crown to spiral into chaos. And yet, in that glance, she saw something else, a glimmer of the man she had married, who loved her enough to at least try to acknowledge her strength and determination. "Thank you, Jarvis," she said softly, placing the bouquet in a vase on the reception table. That means more than you know. But right now, the focus has to be on the restaurant. Everything else can wait." He nodded, taking a careful step closer, though still leaving space between them. "I get it. I know this is your moment, your creation, and I won't step in. I'll respect that. But I wanted you to know that I see you. I see what you've done. And I'm proud of you even if it took me too long to understand it." Caris felt a quiet warmth stir inside her, mingling with the lingering ache of disappointment. She wanted to tell him that things wouldn't simply snap back to the way they were, that trust needed rebuilding brick by brick, and that some wounds take longer to heal than others, but she didn't, not yet. Instead, she took a deep breath, straightening her posture and smoothing her hands over the crisp folds of the tablecloths. "I appreciate that, Jarvis, truly, but for now, my responsibility is here, with the staff, the guests, and the opening. Nothing else comes first." He gave a faint, almost sheepish smile, the kind that revealed a boyish awkwardness beneath the man he had always tried to be. "Then I'll leave you to it," he said quietly, "but I want you to know I'll be cheering for you, from a distance, if I must. I'll respect the space you need, and I'll stay out of the way of everything you've built." Caris nodded, a mix of relief and lingering tension settling over her. She could see now that he truly meant it, that he understood her need for independence, for agency in her own life. "Thank you, Jarvis," she repeated, a small genuine smile curling her lips. "That really does mean a lot." He held her gaze for a moment longer, a quiet intensity in his eyes. Then, with a subtle nod, he turned and walked toward the door, pausing only to add, "Go show the world what Aerys' legacy is. I'll be watching, I'll be rooting for you every step of the way." Caris watched him leave, the sound of his footsteps fading into the cobblestone alley outside. She stood in the warm glow of the sunlight, the white roses in her hand, and felt the weight of the past weeks, the betrayals, the scheming, the chaos begin to lift, replaced by a sense of quiet determination. She placed the bouquet on the reception table, adjusting the arrangement to perfection, before turning her gaze toward the dining room. The room was ready, every detail considered, the polished silver cutlery reflecting the soft afternoon light, the crystal glasses catching sparks of brilliance, the floral arrangements releasing the faint scent of lavender and wild herbs, Aerys' favorite combination, through the air. The kitchen hummed quietly in the background, Brahm and his team moving with the precision and calm that came from years of experience. Caris walked slowly through the space, touching the backs of the chairs, checking the symmetry of the table settings, inhaling the mingled aromas of fresh bread and herbs. Every corner of the restaurant reflected her vision, her respect for Aerys' legacy, and her willingness to infuse it with her own creativity. She paused for a moment by the kitchen door, watching Brahm carefully plate a sample dish. His eyes met hers briefly, acknowledging her presence without breaking concentration. He had been her rock during this transformation, guiding her through decisions large and small, and she felt a surge of gratitude for his steady support. Nidita appeared beside her, clipboard in hand, her eyes shining with pride and satisfaction. "Everything is ready," Nidita said softly. 24 confirmed reservations. The wine is in the cellar. The menus are printed. The staff is prepped. The opening will go smoothly." Caris nodded, a small, confident smile tugging at her lips. Thank you, Nadita, for everything. I couldn't have done this without you and Bram. Nadita placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Aerys saw something in you that even you didn't see yet. She trusted you with her legacy. And so do we. The words resonated deeply, giving Caris a newfound sense of courage. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment, and then opened them again. Gazing at the tables, the windows, the carefully curated details. She was ready. At that moment, a knock at the door drew her attention. She flinched slightly, surprised by the interruption. Through the glass, she saw Jarvis standing there, holding a bouquet of white roses, her favorite. He looked different from his usual precise, businesslike self. Jeans and a simple blue shirt replaced the suit and tie. His hair was tousled, and an incipient stubble marked his face, adding a rugged, almost vulnerable edge. Caris hesitated, then opened the door. "Hello," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "Hello," Jarvis replied softly. "I know you're busy, and I don't want to intrude. I just wanted to see you before the opening. I wish you luck." He extended the bouquet. Caris accepted it, feeling the delicate weight of the flowers and the gesture behind them. She glanced at him, noting the exhaustion in his posture and the mixture of hope and anxiety in his eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but sincere. "I didn't expect to see you today." "I'm not staying for the opening," he said quickly, as if anticipating her next thought. "I know my presence might be inappropriate, especially with the staff. I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you, what you've accomplished in such a short time. It's remarkable." Caris studied him silently, trying to discern whether this was genuine admiration or a cautious attempt at reconciliation. She couldn't answer yet, not until she understood his motives. "And your mother?" he asked hesitantly. "How is she handling all of this?" Caris hesitated, then chose her words carefully. "She's facing the consequences of her actions. I will consider how to handle the building, but I won't let her use Aerys' name or recipes. That is non-negotiable." Jarvis nodded, understanding the firmness in her tone. "I understand," he said softly. "I'm leaving now, but I wanted you to know, I respect what you've done. Truly." Caris placed a hand lightly on the bouquet of roses. Feeling a strange mixture of relief, lingering tension, and anticipation, she watched him turn and leave, the sunlight catching the petals of the flowers, and took a deep breath. She was ready. Aerys' legacy, her own vision, Bram and Nadita by her side. The restaurant was more than ready, and so was she. The stage was set, the guests would soon arrive, and the story of Aerys' legacy, a tale of tradition, perseverance, and innovation, was about to begin. She asked, gently changing the subject, "And your mother?" Jarvis's face darkened, shadows crossing his features. "Not well. She's still in shock over how everything turned out. She invested all her savings into renovating the crown. And now she's left with an empty premises and debts she can barely manage. I've been talking to Berkeley about possible solutions." Caris leaned back slightly, considering the possibilities. "There's a buyer for the building a restaurant group from New York, but I was thinking of another option." Jarvis blinked in surprise. "Another option?" "Yes," Caris said. "Your mother can rent the premises at a reasonable price. Not to continue the legacy crown, that name will remain with me, but to create a completely new restaurant under her own concept. Something more democratic, as she wanted, without destroying what was built here." Jarvis's eyes widened, disbelief written across his face. "You would do that, after everything she did?" Caris shrugged lightly. "I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it because it's what Aerys would do. She always sought solutions that benefited all parties." Jarvis shook his head slowly, a mix of admiration and awe. "You are incredible, Caris. Only now am I truly beginning to understand." His voice softened. "I had a serious talk with my mom, the first one in years. I told her manipulation and control nearly ruined our marriage and almost ruined my life. I made it I would no longer allow her to interfere in my decisions." "And how did she react?" Caris asked, genuinely curious. "At first, she was furious," Jarvis admitted, a weak smile tugging at his lips. "She blamed you for everything, said I was an ungrateful son. But after some time, I think she began to understand. At least she admitted she acted impulsively with the restaurant, that she should have learned more before making decisions." "That's progress," Caris noted, a small smile playing at her lips. "Yes," he said thoughtfully. "By the way, I got an apartment. I decided we both need space to think, and I need to learn to live independently, without Mom's influence." Caris's eyebrows rose in surprise. It was a courageous step for Jarvis, who had spent so long under his mother's shadow. "I'm happy for you," she said sincerely. "It's an important step." Silence fell between them, but it was not uncomfortable. For the first time in a long time, it was a silence full of understanding rather than tension. "I have to go," Jarvis said finally, glancing at the restaurant with respect and awe. "You have a big night ahead. I just wanted to tell you that I'm working on myself, and I hope one day you can trust me again." As he turned to leave, Caris called softly, "Jarvis, tell your mother my offer to lease the building is still on the table. Ask her to contact Berkeley if she's interested." Jarvis nodded, gratitude and relief crossing his features, and then quietly left. Caris stood alone, the bouquet of white roses he had brought resting in her hands. She inhaled the faint scent of lavender and greenery, her emotions a complex mix of pride, anxiety, and hope. Precisely at 5 p.m., the doors of Aerys' Legacy opened to the first guests. Longtime friends of Aerys, loyal Legacy Crown patrons, food critics, and members of the press filtered inside. Caris personally greeted each attendee, her demeanor calm yet charged with excitement, as if Aerys herself were silently watching over her. The evening was organized as a tribute to her godmother. The menu combined Aerys' classic recipes with modern interpretations by Bram and Caris. Each dish came with a small card, narrating its story or a fond memory of Aerys. When the last guests were seated, Caris rose to speak. "Good evening," she began. The room fell into respectful silence. "Thank you all for joining us to celebrate this special moment. Aerys Holloway taught me that food nourishes not only the body but also the soul. 30 years ago, she opened a small cafe that grew into the legendary Legacy Crown. Today, we open a new chapter in that story. We preserve the traditions and quality that made the Crown famous. But we also embrace innovation, reflecting the future Aerys always envisioned. As she always said, honor the past, but look to the future. That is our guiding principle tonight." Glasses clinked and nods of approval rippled through the room. Chef Bram Cassidy and his talented team have prepared dishes that capture the soul of Southern cuisine with a modern twist. Each plate has its own story and character, and we hope these stories touch your hearts as they have touched ours. She lifted her glass. "To Aerys Holloway, whose passion and love for people inspire us all, and to new beginnings that honor the past while embracing the future." Applause filled the room. The dinner commenced an elegant dance of flavors and textures. Lamb fillet with rosemary and truffle mash, Aerys' famed fish recipe with contemporary touches, and desserts crafted by Caris herself, including her signature lavender and honey cake. Critics scribbled notes, photographers captured every moment, and guests shared enthusiastic comments and laughter. Caris moved from table to table, sharing stories about Aerys, listening to feedback, and engaging with guests about the restaurant's vision. By the night's end, the success was undeniable. Glowing reviews, rising reservations, and heartfelt praise assured her that Aerys' legacy had found its place in Atlanta's culinary world. A week later, Caris received an unexpected visit. Tamsin Niles, usually imposing and flamboyant, appeared in a modest gray suit, her expression subdued. She requested to speak with the owner, and was led to Caris' office. "I came to talk about your offer the lease of the Crown building," Tamsin said, seated carefully. She looked uncertain, almost fragile. "At first, pride wouldn't let me accept help from someone I treated badly, but then I looked at the empty building and my debts, and I realized I had no choice. Jarvis also helped me see things differently. He reminded me that I should create my own dream rather than trying to steal someone else's." Caris listened, genuinely surprised by Tamsin's humility and self-reflection. "So, what have you decided?" Caris asked. "I would like to accept your offer," Tamsin replied, a small smile appearing. "I'll open a new restaurant in the Crown building with a different name and concept, something accessible, a bistro with good home-cooked meals at reasonable prices. I'd also like to apologize for how I treated you over the years. For what I did to Aerys' legacy, I acted out of jealousy and ambition without considering the consequences." Caris paused, absorbing the words. "I appreciate your honesty. I'm ready to move forward without holding a grudge." Tamsin's expression softened, gratitude evident. "And one more thing. Jarvis is truly changing. For the first time in years, I see determination and independence in him." Caris smiled faintly, choosing to stay silent on her own relationship, but she acknowledged the shift with a nod. That evening, as the restaurant buzzed with diners, Caris stood behind the bar, observing her team. Bram led the kitchen with focused precision. Nidita oversaw the dining room with effortless elegance, and every staff member moved as a single, harmonious unit. "This is your legacy," Aerys Caris thought silently. "Not just the recipes, Not just the building, but the people. I will honor it, preserve it, and grow it. Edward, the sommelier, approached with a rare vintage. Miss Monroe, a guest at table 5, requested this be given to you. It was Aerys's favorite wine, reserved for special occasions. Caris read the label, her eyes lighting with recognition. She looked toward table 5 and saw Jarvis seated modestly, his presence quiet, respectful. Their eyes met across the room. He smiled faintly, acknowledging her without intruding. She nodded to Edward. Open it, pour 2 glasses. I'll join my guest shortly. Caris didn't know if her marriage would survive, or if she could fully forgive Jarvis. But standing in her restaurant, surrounded by loyal staff, excited guests, and the legacy of her godmother, she felt a profound certainty. No matter what happened, she could handle it. Aerys's legacy lived on not just in recipes, not just in walls, but in courage, determination, and the ability to embrace the future while honoring the past. Caris took a deep breath, her hand brushing the smooth crystal of her glass as she walked toward Jarvis, ready to face whatever came next with strength she had only just discovered within herself.